right, this is it. I think it's time. I've had this topic on mind for a long time. I've said it in bits and pieces of different times and streams and videos. I think today I wanted to delve a little bit more into detail with this, and that is how the new expansion model can fix Guild Wars 2. And it's very simple. We've already seen it with this current expansion, Secrets of the Obscure. So a bit of context. We've gone from what used to be a big expansion every 2 to 3 years to basically an expansion every year. The way that the new expansion model works is you pay $25 and you will get a whole expansion, however, split into multiple updates over the year. You will get the first update, which comes with a large portion of the story, 2 maps, and 2 strikes. Then you'll get the second update, which will come 2-3 months later, third update, and fourth update, like that. So pretty much 4 updates, the initial release, and then 3 to finish it up. So the whole expansion is distributed over a year. And I think that's a very interesting model. I think it's more consistent than waiting 3 years for like a big chunk. I think it does allow ANET to sort of use this new system to fix or revamp or even introduce new things, or choose to focus on something specifically for that expansion. And I think the one thing with like every 3 years having an expansion is that they had to focus the resources on stuff in that expansion, but then also trying to do too much. And I think by doing too much, they've overwhelmed themselves. I think an expansion a year and the way they've paced it, where it has an initial release and then you have the 3 releases to complete it, allows them to actually pick and choose every year what they want to work on. Example, the LFG system. This needs a fix right here, right? This right here, it's not very well done. There's a lot of things they could do with the LFG system that, in fact, they have the infrastructure for. You could see that they could label stuff and things like that. I do think with the LFG, they can sort of get things going, such as like group finders or things like that, that would make the experience of finding groups to play with easier, right? So I wouldn't say that this would take forever to fix, but I think they have the infrastructure to play around with the LFG, assuming they don't break something in the code. I don't know. That probably is a different issue they have to fix, but the LFG is a prime example to me of something that they could revamp and introduce as a new feature in a future expansion. Similarly to how daily system was changed and revamped into the Wizard's Vault for Secrets of the Obscure. It's a very great example of a current system, which was the daily system, which we used to log in. If you logged in every day, you basically got whatever it is that you logged in for, and that was your daily reward system. And then at the end of a daily login cycle, which is 28 days, you got like a big chunk of items you could choose from, like laurels, like T6 mats, legendary stuff like obsidian and mystic clovers, things like that. So I think, yeah, Wizard's Vault, a good example of revamping the daily system. And also they've updated as well. So the cool thing about Secrets of the Obscure is that when they initially released this vault system, it did have a little bit of a pushback mainly on this, the daily and the weekly. There wasn't enough options. However, they've gone ahead and quickly updated that, even with the specials. So they've already shown that they can easily change things. So LFG to me is something similar like that. I think they can implement group finders. I think they could definitely take it up a notch, and focus on that for the expansion. And that could be the next one as well, right? Another one that's a good example would be the guild system. In fact, I would think that there is a recruitment section here, although it's not very well used. I can't even find it. I'm not sure where it is to begin with. It would be here, guild recruitment. Yeah, sometimes you forget to even scroll down, to be honest. Yeah, guild recruitment. I really think that if they had an option here that you could just click on, and then you could just advertise your guild in like a group, in like a guild finder, it would make the job much easier. I don't know how much more it would be taxing on the game system here, but I'm pretty sure this would be a very good thing to have, a guild system here. So anyone wants to find a guild, they could go into like a guild panel. They could filter it with like, they could filter it with like, for example, PvP, PvE, world versus world, maybe like type raid guild, type fractal guild, things that like, you know, like keywords to like maybe find the exact kind of guild that they're looking for, or just browse a bunch of other, you know, other kind of guilds, like community guilds that like are focused on stuff like griffins or beetles. I really do think having a guild system here would be cool, and I think this is maybe one of the, again, I'm not sure about like how it would break anything in the game, but if that is easy to, if that is like a non-brainer, like they could easily fix that within here without breaking something, then that is one of the easiest things they can do in like a update. And yeah, I guess you could say like, that's cheating. They're gonna say that's a feature, but that would be a very big game changer to have the ability to find the guilds here rather than rely on map chat or step out of the game and go to discords where maybe those guilds may advertise in. And it's keeping it in the game. So yeah, a guild finder like WoW. That's basically what I just said, more or less. A guild finder like WoW. What else is there? Alliances. I hate to use alliances as a feature because this should have been done like years ago. In fact, we were expecting maybe by this year it would be released. But yeah, alliances would be a prime example of something they could work on for like an expansion. So to be honest with you, I don't even know if alliances would be released in the next expansion. ANET has already shown that they've hinted that they already worked or started or already developing the next expansion, right? Like Secrets of the Obscure, for those who aren't aware, it's done, by the way. Like they're gonna release the next update, the next 2 updates after that update. They're gonna complete the Secrets of the Obscure story. They're gonna open up the map. They're gonna be CMs for the strikes. The Fractal and the CMs will release. More achievements will release. Like Soto is done. They've actually finished that expansion. They're literally just now in releasing phases, and they have to just work on developing the next expansion. That's how fast these yearly expansions will be. So to me, this is another reason why they can easily pick and choose what they want to focus on in this expansion. Like with Secrets of the Obscure, they revamped the weapon system, right? Like they opened weapons for every single specialization, right? Any class can have a weapon. Doesn't matter what specialization they are, they can have it. If they have a specialization that carries a weapon, that means any other specialization can carry that weapon. Similarly with the Wizard's Vault, they've revamped it as well. So I think next expansion, something like the LFG, that could be the focus. Something like a guild finder can be the focus. Alliances can be the focus. Yes, if you're watching this video, alliances is basically you're in a guild that is set as your Davidup guild, meaning when you're set as the Davidup guild in your guild, you will only play with members of that guild in world versus world, right? And basically like servers wouldn't exist anymore. You'll just have worlds where if you're playing with your guild, you'll be paired into the similar world with them. And then if your guild is part of an alliance of other guilds, then all of you guys will be playing in the same world. And then every 2 months or whenever a season ends, they would just reset the worlds, and then pretty much your alliance or your guild will be placed with other alliances or guilds. And it's supposed to sort of fix a population issue. So it's supposed to kind of be keeping population in mind. So it could balance out the matches much more evenly. That's the gist of alliances, more or less. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have this ready by the next expansion. But this certainly feels like it's the chance to have that. I think I would say the hype is gone with alliances. I don't think same energy and activity was there when the game was at the start of this year. But unfortunately, that's what it is. But alliances is a case of like, it's an update where it's a little iffy to say like, yeah, we're releasing this expansion, because since they started reworking on it, that's already been around 2 years now. I'm not going to count the initial release in 2017 when they announced it, because we all know no one was working on it back then. But now they are. Now people are working on it now. So I would count that. And yeah, 2 years is kind of a lot. I don't think they ran enough beta tests. They've only managed to do about 4 or 5, which is not enough. Realistically, they would have had to have at least 10. I think 10 would have given them an indication. So with alliances, I think they have the infrastructure in place, but they still haven't fixed the exact reason why they wanted to introduce it, which is the balancing of populations. And I think they're not going to figure out how to balance it 100%, so they're going to have to compromise on that. So that's the issue with that. But yeah, that's another example. Another thing I would say is they can also try to focus on one game mode per expansion, right? So Secrets of the Obscure was very systems heavy. I expect maybe the next expansion might have a bit more of a systems sort of heavy feature. Like, you know, they're going to take systems and rechange them, revamp them, and then present them as features of the expansion. Eventually they might run out of that stuff, you know, and hopefully they don't start changing something just for the sake of change. And they, you know, if it needs to change, like the LFG does, like the Guild Finder does, yeah, I'm all for that, because, you know, that's stuff that needs to happen. One thing is focusing on the game mode, right? And this is very much like a hard ask, because this is, you're assuming they can do that or will do that. Not meaning just because they can, maybe they won't, right? Maybe not necessarily means they will. So I think something like having an expansion where, like, all right, we're going to focus a bit more on delivering a lot of PvE content, right? So they're going to maybe say, all right, for this one, you're going to get your 2 strikes, but we might give you 2 fractals or 3 fractals. Maybe, hey, Wing 8, the ancient or the prophecy of Wing 8 comes out. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they end up saying that we can afford to dedicate some resources to create a wing out of this. And they certainly can do that if they focus on having the story in the game become a raid, right? Right now, raids in Guild Wars 2 are their own thing. They have their own plot line, which means they have to develop new voice lines. They have to develop new instances. Whereas if they just took something in the story of the game and like, all right, we're going to make this also a wing, a raid, makes it easier because the dialogue is already done. They just have to redo like the instance, the fight in a raid format. So yeah, I would say something like that is fine. Not saying that will happen, but yeah, something like I can have a focus on an expansion where there's PvE, raids, maybe more strikes, maybe more fractals. They're sort of already doing this with strikes, where they've moved it to become story oriented since Icebrute Saga. Maybe more achievement heavy. Who knows, right? Maybe PvP. They're like, this expansion will maybe try to do like maybe 2 new PvP maps, maybe 1 new PvP map. Who knows? Maybe World versus World. Hey, we get a new Borderland. So I think it allows them to kind of pivot between game modes and just choose where they want to focus on each game mode. Because at some point they will run out of the systems, and I think at some point the idea that becomes a formula, like there's 2 strikes, 1 fractal, and you have a story that's spread over 1 year, it can get a little bit too trivial and maybe not, I wouldn't say boring, because it's all dependent on the story and the maps. If they're engaging, that's great. But I do think people might, you kind of have to have like a flavor for each expansion, right? So this expansion, the flavor is PvP. This one, the flavor is PvE. This one's World vs. World, right? I wouldn't say there's one that's gonna have a mix of all, because that's asking for a lot. That we've seen that usually creates a huge disconnect, and especially in the consistency of content delivery. So I'd say if they added like the flavor of that expansion, that's not too bad. But within that scope of stuff that they're delivering, right? And since it has a year for them, they can kind of pick and choose where in that year they put those updates in, right? So that's the major thing. Like, we're not getting the fractal, I think, until the next map, right? We're not getting the final parts of the 3rd map until the 4th part of the expansion or something, right? So they can kind of like pivot where they put these things. So that kind of thing, for me, I think makes a lot of sense for them to go about these game modes, go about these systems. They can choose even stuff that like similarly like player housing, right? Like player housing kind of would change some things in guild halls, like, or even guild halls if they update them to be somewhat similar to player housing. Like they could focus on one expansion where like we're introducing player housing. One expansion could be like we're gonna add another guild hall. We're gonna add more decorations, or we're gonna revamp the way guild halls are done, right? So that people could actually use them, because there's communities who actually care about guild halls, communities who actually decorate their guild hall specifically for their community, right? Like we've seen stuff like there's a Griffin community. They have a whole sort of G hall literally just dedicated for like Griffin training courses. Like they literally have built a setup for their Griffins to basically fly in and do cool stunts in, right? So they could do stuff like you know, just go through stunts and whatever. So that's very fun. There's Beetle communities who have like literally created these cool race tracks for the guild hall. I mean, there's like a whole like, you know, Formula 1-ish of Beetle racing in Guild Wars 2. So there are communities who engage with that, right, and actually use the guild hall. So I think when they actually use stuff like that in the expansion, that would be great. I would go on to say even using existing stuff in the game, like making guild missions a bit more have a bit more variety. For example, they can add weekly raid cap, weekly strike cap, weekly fractal cap to existing guild missions, right? They could literally add more guild treks, which is literally you go and you just take a screenshot of a particular picture in the game. You could do more challenges, more like there's so much that you could do with what's already in the game. All you got to do is link it to missions, and now you've revitalized missions a little bit for players who are creating new guilds, or giving existing guilds a reason to go back and do missions. So I think stuff like that can easily be done with something like the yearly expansion. Pivoting through content, focusing on certain things for each expansion, and just maintaining that focus. So stuff like that is what I'd like to see in future expansions. And I really think that this is a good way for ANET to fix a lot of things in the game. It gives them a lot of time to just pick one thing. Because of the consistency of an expansion once a year, this does mean that they'll be able to get a lot of these things done at a faster pace rather than more or less every 3 years. You know, there's like a bit of a stalemate here. So yeah, the ball is in that court. It's there. You know, they already have a very good system. They're like 2 strikes, 3 maps, 1 fractal, CMs, big achievements, a whole sort of battle pass with the Wizard's Vault that is supposed to reward you with pretty much cool skins and things like that by playing the game. And yeah, just a few changes every now and then for each expansion. Honestly, that's enough. I don't expect for them to like say, yeah, we're gonna have 2 raids, 3 strikes, 5 fractals in this expansion, right? Or in another expansion, they're like, we're gonna introduce world versus world PvP maps, and then also instead of 2 strikes, you're getting 5 strikes. I mean, it's clear that that's not the level that we'll be able to expect from these expansions. However, consistency is good. Consistency is key to driving up the momentum, and it allows them to sort of add a bit of flavor. Pretty much that's it. Each expansion has its self-contained story, its flavor, its what's the feature for that expansion. It doesn't have to be industry defining, just what's the thing that makes that expansion different from the rest, besides like the story and everything, and what's the change, right? If there is a change. And pretty much it. Keep it simple. So yeah, that's more or less my sense on this. I think I have spoken on this quite a lot in different formats, and to me it was just like trying to piece all of these together and bring them in as examples. I don't think I went through these examples in particularly like in detail as before. So yeah, honestly, that's really what I hope to see. And you know, if it happens, it happens. If not, fair enough. But I think it's a very cool way of and very, very, I think, realistic expectation of seeing how things can happen. As long as, you know, they take it in those short doses, I don't think they'll overwhelm themselves. And yeah, every year, consistency. That's pretty much it. That's how I think these new yearly expansions can help save ANET, or help revamp the game in a new way. So that's my 2 cents. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. If you want to support the video, like it, subscribe, and until next time, gamers, let me know what you think. Do you agree? And if not, let me know. Until then, I will see you when I see you. Take care.